Well, welcome. In this video, we're going to be looking at living out our identity in Christ. And to do that, we will first look at the purpose, then we'll look at a description of the project itself, then we'll look at the steps that are involved in the project, and finally, we'll look at some personal applications that we can do in our own life. So let me share my screen with you. And as we do, we'll walk through each of those steps in more detail. So what we're doing is we're looking at living out our identity in Christ. It comes from character outcome number one, competency number one. When we think about the actual purpose of this, it would be this. The project will help you to affirm your identity in Christ and the steps that are needed for you to move forward towards greater Christ-likeness or conformity to Christ in light of your identity. In terms of a description, there are four aspects of it. First, you'll be making a life map, and that will begin to help you understand who you are today. And from the life map, you'll then actually look at your identity in Christ, and that's who we become or who we've become when we came to Christ. Then we'll be doing some critique as to who we are and how we think we can get from who we are right now to our identity in Christ. And then we'll make a SMART plan in light of that. And so we're going to look at each of those in more detail. So first, we want to understand what a life map is. A life map captures who you are today, both the good, the bad, and the ugly. It helps you to understand why you are the way you are right now. Now, it's not a timeline, and I'll give you an example in my own life. A timeline would look like this. I was born in West Germany. I was adopted at age 3. My father died when I was 7. Okay, that just tells you the historical events. But we need to get to the whys behind the whats. And so a life map would look like this. I was born in West Germany. I was adopted to the United States when I was 3. And that began to produce some insecurities in me. And then what happened is when my father died at age 7, I became a very insecure person. And I began to realize that fear was ruling my life. And so I wouldn't enter into relationships deeply. I wouldn't give myself. I was afraid to put myself out there and to try things that I didn't know for fear that I would fail. Therefore, I wouldn't help people. Therefore, I wouldn't love people. It just created all sorts of messes in my life. And so that's the idea of what a life map is. And it explains why I have some of the tendencies that I have today. That when I'm asked to speak, that I get very nervous and I really don't want to do it because I'm very insecure. Now, we move from that to then saying we want to understand what our identity in Christ is. And that's who we are. That is our position in Christ. When Christ died on the cross and we put our faith in him, we then died with him. And so there are some things that are very true about us. For example, we are now God's child. We are a citizen of heaven. We're a minister of God. We're free from condemnation. And so when we think about those things, that is actually who we are. That's our true identity. And so we need to move from our life map, which is our position, our daily experience, to then embracing in who we are in Christ. And so to do that, it's going to take some reflection. And finally, when you've done the reflection, you want to say, okay, this is who I was. That's my life map. Now that's my condition, but I want to move towards my position, who I am in Christ. And to do that, I need to have a developmental plan. I need to have an intentional plan to move from my condition to my position, from what I am now and how I look at myself in the mirror to actually understanding who I am in Christ. And so that's where we implement a SMART plan. Now, the SMART plan will begin to help us to intentionally live out our identity in Christ. So, for example, when I am asked to speak and I get really nervous and I think, okay, oh my gosh, I was adopted and all those things, and that influences how I'm going to make this decision. And I want to say, no, I don't want to do it because I'm too insecure. I don't want to fail. If I fail, I don't think you'll like me, and I don't want to be rejected. I know what it's like to be rejected from my initial parents. And then with my father died, and I felt rejected yet again. So I can't let that control me, because in Christ, I am secure. I am forever forgiven. I am forever his child. And therefore, I can begin to act out and say, yes, I will accept the speaking opportunity and use the gifts that God has given me to encourage and help others. And that allows me to conquer that fear that would be my tendency because of my life map, which would have revealed that. Now, the last thing we want to think about is, well, how does this apply to you on the field? Well, first, it helps you to understand who you really are. We don't want to live in light of some phantom of the past, but we want to live in light of who God has actually made us to be on the cross when Christ died. Second is, it's an opportunity for us to make the invisible God visible when we live out our identity in Christ. Third, it's a very powerful testimony of God's ability to change a life. When I share my earlier experiences from my life map, and then you see what God has done, it testifies of his power and the power of the gospel to bring change in a person's life. Next, it provides the power for freedom, and to live out that identity in Christ allows us to be free. It allows us to be finally who we really are. And the last thing then that we want to realize is that as we're caring for people and discipling and developing them, we want them to also understand that you don't want to just be stuck from the issues in the past, but you want to live out your identity in Christ so that you can be a powerful witness of God and his love to those in the world. So that's the heart of this project. I hope that it is something that you enjoy. It will be quite, what would you say, an emotional project as you go through the issues of your life, but that's the project. So thank you.